Hey there, marketers. You're listening to the Son of a Pitch podcast, where modern marketing strategy is broken down into clear, practical ideas you can actually use. I'm your host, Kenneth, and today we're talking about something that many organizations overlook: why simpler brands tend to scale faster. This episode is brought to you by Pitch Cloud, the creative studio helping brands communicate with clarity through strategy, video, and design. Learn more at pitchcloudmanagement.com. Let's get into it. Most organizations don't become complicated overnight. Complexity accumulates slowly. A new program gets added, another audience gets included, a new initiative launches, messaging expands to cover more possibilities. At first, this seems like growth, but over time, the brand starts describing too many things at once. The messaging becomes harder to summarize. The value proposition takes longer to explain. People outside the organization struggle to quickly understand what the organization actually does. And when clarity decreases, momentum usually follows. There's a psychological reason simpler brands scale faster. The human brain prefers shortcuts. When people encounter a brand, they're unconsciously asking a few quick questions. What is this? Who is it for? Why should I care? If those answers are immediately clear, the brand becomes easier to remember. But when the explanation requires several steps, the brain often postpones the decision. Not because the brand lacks value, but because the effort required to understand it is too high in the moment. Simplicity lowers that barrier. Ironically, the organizations with the most expertise often struggle the most with simplicity because they know too much. They understand all the nuance. They see multiple applications for their work. They recognize how their services connect to different audiences. So the messaging expands to include everything. But audiences don't experience organizations from the inside. They experience them from the outside. And from the outside, clarity matters more than completeness. Brands that scale effectively usually share a few characteristics. Their message is easy to repeat, their positioning is easy to understand, their value is easy to explain. You'll notice that when people talk about those brands, they often describe them in very simple terms. A short sentence, a clear association, a specific outcome. That simplicity creates consistency, and consistency creates recognition. Recognition is what allows brands to grow beyond their immediate networks. Simple brands also move faster internally. Teams understand the message. Marketing becomes easier to coordinate. Sales conversations start with shared context. Instead of consistently redefining the brand, the organization reinforces it. And that reinforcement compounds over time. The message becomes familiar, the brand becomes recognizable, and the organization becomes easier to recommend. Here's a useful question to ask about your organization. If someone outside your industry asks what you do, could you explain it in one clear sentence? Not the full description, just the essence. If that sentence feels difficult to find, the brand might be carrying more complexity than it needs, and simplifying it could unlock growth. If there's one idea to remember from today's episode, it's this. Growth doesn't always come from adding more. Sometimes it comes from making the message clearer. Simplicity makes brands easier to understand, and the easier something is to understand, the easier it is to spread. That wraps up today's episode of Son of a Pitch. If this episode made you think differently about simplicity and branding, share it with someone working on a growing organization. Next week, we're starting a new series focused on associations and membership organizations, beginning with a conversation about why association membership has stagnated nationwide. For more strategy and creative support, visit pitchcloudmanagement.com. We'll see you next week.